The Audi E-Tron GT is one of the most beautiful and exciting electric cars currently on sale, and even though it doesn't have the best claimed WLTP rated range, efficiency in the real world is actually a lot better than people may think. That combined with a peak charging speed of 270 kilowatts and a 10 to 80% charging time of less than 20 minutes, it is still one of the best performing electric cars in my long trip test. This being the RS version on winter wheels, it remains to be seen if this is as efficient and performs as good as the non-RS version. But since I last tested this car, it has gotten a few software updates to make it more efficient. So it remains to be seen, will the RS version perform as good or maybe even better than the test I did 3 years ago. After a little more than an hour, we have now covered 130 kilometers almost with an average consumption of 23.2 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Today's conditions are pretty nice, really nice weather and not too much wind. But it is a little bit cold, 7 degrees Celsius now, and the highest we've had is around 11 degrees Celsius. So yeah, this is almost like a winter test because it is pretty decently cold still outside, even though we are at the end of April. Yeah, the weather the past 3, 4, 5, 6 months has been so bad here in eastern Norway. But we've now arrived to the 2-lane section of this test. We've now covered a 4-lane motorway section of almost 130 kilometers. But after about 20 kilometers of 2-lane roads now, we're gonna hit a patch of 4-lane motorway again. And it's gonna be like that until we get to Kristiansand. So our average consumption now, 22.9, dropping a little bit now, and it will keep on dropping with lower speeds. This car, even though it's been on the market for 3 years, still doesn't have a numerical readout for the battery percentage. You still have to go into a menu here to find out the exact percentage. And we are currently at 63% stated charge. And according to the car, we have 222 kilometers of range. And we have 175 kilometers to go till our turnaround point. So I think the consumption is gonna drop now. We're gonna be able to go all the way to Kristiansand and then start heading back towards Oslo. And yeah, get a fair bit down the road before we have to stop and charge. If we do this correctly today, this will be a one-stop charging trip, which is going to be pretty awesome. So this car still can post a really good time because with that consumption dropping, we maybe get close to 400 kilometers before we have to stop and charge, and that is pretty impressive. Welcome to downtown Kristiansand, almost all the way to the south of Norway. This is basically, the biggest town or city in the south of Norway, but you can get a little bit further south to a place called Lindesnes Syd. I think it's like the most southern point, if I'm not completely mistaken. But we are here now, and according to the car, we have 59 kilometers of range left, and I have to go into the menu here to check out the battery percentage. 17% state of charge and an average consumption of 22.2 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So I set a charging stop into the navigation system. I did about half an hour ago to give the car enough time to precondition the battery. And that is in Grimstad, which is about 44 kilometers up the road. So we should be able to arrive there with let's see, the car estimates 4% stated charge. I mean, the infotainment system in this car is actually pretty good and pretty decent once you get used to using it. I've had an E-Tron before and an E-Tron GT before, and once using it, it's not a problem. I've used this infotainment system to navigate and to plan charging throughout Europe in my E-Tron GT I had a few years ago, but it does, it's lacking a little bit in some of the usability part, for example, it will tell you what percentage you will arrive with, but you have to go into a sub-menu. I wish that information was just readily available here so you can monitor it, but on the flip side, this is very accurate in estimating how much battery percentage you are going to arrive with, so it's really nicely calibrated. So we're now on our way back towards Oslo, and yeah, we'll do the planned charging stop, and hopefully it's going to be quite a short one because this charge is really fast. We're 800 meters now, 700 meters from our charging stop, and if we take a look at the consumption now, 22.1 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, and we've covered 348 kilometers with 15 kilometers of more range according to the car. So we're going to stop here at these 300 kilowatt chargers. Hopefully some, if not all, are vacant. Thankfully, all actually seem to be free. So let's just choose the one all the way over here, the far side. And the charging port on the E-Tron GT is here on the front passenger side. So let's put the car into park. And before we do that, I want to just check the battery percentage, what we are at now. Close this menu and then go into the charging menu. 4% stated charge, and that is exactly what the car predicted we were going to arrive with. We've now connected to this 300 kilowatt charger, and at this charging station they have actually 3 of these Alpatronics hyperchargers which can split the charge between 2 cars, but if you're only 1 car connected you get the full 300 kilowatts. So interestingly enough, the car's saying we arrived here with 5% and not 4%. And yeah, that's the percentage it said when I just connected. And let's see if we get that, claim charging speed of 270 kilowatts. It may be not before we are above 10%. We're gonna get the full 270, but we're still, look at this guys, 245. That is actually pretty decent, especially driving the car so low into the percentage that the car has to make a choice. Do I precondition the battery more, or do I risk not arriving at the charging stop with enough battery to get there and precondition the battery even more? So there is a balance which these cars have to take. When I went to the launch of the Audi Q6 e-tron in Munich last month, we actually asked the engineers this exact question, like when does the car stop preconditioning if you are navigated to a charger? And they said it is different depending on how much percentage you have left and where you're going. Unlike other cars, like for example the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and Ioniq 6 and also Kia EV6 and EV9 that actually stops preconditioning en route with a charger chosen at below 20%, I think, and if you do manual preconditioning it's 15%. That car just stops at a specific percentage, where this car and the Q6 e-tron do not. And as we can see here, guys, we're actually 12% stated charge now, getting 251 kilowatts. So that is actually pretty impressive. 252. So we may not get that full 270, but considering we went down to 4% stated charge and just pushed the car really low, and still getting that percentage with a outside temperature of like 8 degrees Celsius outside, I think that is actually pretty good. And like always in these videos, we are using the Elton charging app to charge at these chargers. The Elton charging app is a one-and-all charging solution if you live in Norway, Sweden, Finland, or Denmark. It lets you charge at almost all charge point operators in all of these countries. It's super easy to use. You just download the app, you register your payment card once, and then you have full overview of all the chargers in all of these countries, and you can charge at almost all the charge point operators. We are now back here at Esso in Slättbanden, where we started this test earlier today. So we arrived here with 2% stated charge and an average consumption of 22.0 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And considering relatively cold temperatures today, between 5 and 11 degrees Celsius, I don't think that consumption is too bad at all. If we look at the non-RS E-Tron GT, I tested almost 3 years ago, also on 21-inch wheels, but with milder temperatures, the consumption of that test was 20.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. But what is very impressive in today's test is the results. So the RS E-Tron GT completed this test, 610 kilometer route, almost 400 miles, with a total charging time of only 17 minutes. That is correct, guys. Only 17 minutes is one of the best results we've had in this test period. And considering that is also one of the coldest temperatures we've had, yeah, it's just impressive. This car, with its good efficiency for being this type of vehicle, not the best efficiency, but it having good efficiency, it having a relatively big battery, and that insane charging speed, we went from 4 to 75% stated charge in only 17 minutes. That is recharging the battery 79% in 17 minutes. Yeah, that is so impressive. And we didn't even hit the peak speed of 270 kilowatts. We peaked at 258 kilowatts. So yeah, I don't know what to say other than this car is really, really impressive. And this sets a precedence for the facelifted version coming out later this year. Yeah, I don't know what to say other than that's super impressive. And this still shows 3 years after it was launched, and with a lot of new electric cars on the market, that this is still one of the best road trip and long trip electric cars on the market. I'm just impressed. And this is the RS version. This is the least efficient, the highest performance version. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please drop me a thumbs up down below. And for more car content, as always, please subscribe. See you guys around. Goodbye.